Hey everyone, I'm Jessica.
And I'm Julian, and we're both from the Redwood City Public Library Teen Center. We're so happy to be back with you.
So this whole month of October, we are having STEAM at the library. So all of our activities this month will be revolving around STEAM.
So for today's activity, we're going to use science to do some cooking. So we're calling it COVID Kitchen. And we're going to use a process called denaturation to do the cooking for us.
So what that process is the actual physical change of a protein due to an extreme condition. And the extreme condition in our activity today is acid, which is your orange and lemon mixture. So what's going to be happening to the couscous is it's going to go from a solid texture to a soft texture, all by just adding acid. No baking or cooking necessary.
So today's dish is called tabbouleh. It's a couscous-based salad. And couscous is a grain that's found in the Middle East and Africa. It looks a little bit like rice and it's really short grain. The cool thing about it is so small that we can do a lot of cooking with it without an oven. So if you open up your kit, you're gonna find the following ingredients. You're gonna have 1 cup of couscous. It's gonna Ziploc baggie. You're gonna have 1 small cucumber, 2 Roma tomatoes, 1 small onion, parsley. Now this is mint. I just love mint, but not everyone loves it. We gave you some parsley, but you can throw whatever you want in there, like cilantro, Italian parsley, or mint. Either of it works. We also gave you 2 squeeze bottles. One's with olive oil, and other one's with a mixture of lemon and orange juice. And we also gave you, because this is a pandemic, 1 COVID mask and a pair of gloves. Believe it or not, you want the mask to use when you're gonna be chopping. Also, what you're gonna need at home, which hopefully you're gonna have, is salt and pepper, which hopefully you have, a salad bowl, and a spoon to mix everything with. And you'll need 1 cutting board. Now, as well as a knife. Now, I want to make sure, check with your parents which knife you're allowed to use to cook your vegetables, because you want to be safe and some of these can be pretty sharp. Now, you also want to make sure you have a clean surface. You always start that when you're cooking. So make sure your surface is completely clean and that you've rinsed your vegetables. Just throw them under the water for a little bit and that should be fine. And then, believe it or not, put your COVID mask on because it actually is helpful in the chopping process. All right, let's start with the tomatoes. So, with a knife that you check with your parents to be able to use for cutting vegetables, you're gonna grab your tomato, and you see the top right here with the little nub there? You wanna take that part out. But aside from that, that's all you're gonna need to take out. We're gonna use the rest of it. And we're gonna do a slow dice and put it as small pieces so it could, because when you eat a salad, you don't want big chunks of tomato. So, just start with this one. Keep your fingers curved like this. Trust me, as someone who's cut his hands, you'd wanna do this. Slice like this, like a little saw, and it should come out pretty easily. So the rest we can use. And the idea, anytime you dice something, is you want to make them look like little dice. That's the name. And we want little cubes. And that way that they don't have to be super even, but just small enough so you can mix it in a salad. So let's go ahead. Curved fingers again. And tight. Tomatoes can be really soft and ripe. So sometimes you got to go a little slow and do a little sawing motion like this to get them going. If you have a serrated knife, a knife with teeth, that actually helps really well, even a small one on tomatoes. But you can make do with this. So they get a little messy, but that's good. You want all that juice. So just keep going, it's okay. Tomatoes can be a little tough with the skin like that too. Just keep going. So what I'm doing here, I'm taking this piece and putting it flat side down. I'm just gonna keep doing the same sawing motion and dice. They don't have to be perfect. And I see that they're lengthwise like this. Move them again, same thing. So I just did this part, but let's go ahead and do the rest of this tomato. Try and stack it all together, so that way in one sawing motion will go through the whole thing for you. Curved fingers. Don't worry, it's gonna get messy. It's okay. And chop. And I'm rotating it again, so I just do the other side. Tomatoes are messy. This is just what happens. And when you're done with it, if your cutting board's small and thin like this one, just lift it, take your knife, put it upside down, and you can scrape all the contents directly in the tabbouleh like this. So each time you add a veggie in the bowl, just mix it up. You want the juices from the tabbouleh to really mix it. Ooh. Now, it's only been like 20 minutes and the couscous has already soaked up most of the lemon juice. So that's already showing that it's cooking up really well. You'll use the olive oil at the end so that we make sure it's off. But it's already like absorbed most of the juice. Okay, next, the onion. Now, this is where your mask is gonna be handy. You know, you notice how some people cry when they chop with an onion? It's because it has a lot of fumes as soon as you cut it that go in. And when you're talking or breathing with your mouth, that actually gets the fumes inside and starts to crying. So the mask will actually protect you from it. Keep it on. Now, onions can be tricky too. I actually love chopping onions way more than tomatoes. There's always a fuzzy side on the onion. You want to go there. You want to chop it in half with one fuzzy side like this. Boom. Now, one thing when you cut it in half, the skin's a lot easier to take out. So go ahead and do that. You don't want any skin on this, trust me. It's okay to take a few layers of good onion off too. Just make sure you don't have any skin there. And it's a little tricky with a glove, as I'm learning right now, but don't worry. It should come off a lot more easily now it's chopped in half. So, you have half an onion like this. Here's a way to chop an onion and not get a bajillion little pieces all around you. Keep that fuzzy side here and chop the other one the same way you chopped your tomato. Just the edge like this. You don't need that part. The rest is all good to go. So, you see the fuzzy part? It's gonna keep all of the onion together while you're chopping it. And you wanna chop kind of like the spokes of a wheel going towards the middle. That's how you're gonna do it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's gonna keep mostly intact. Sorry, little pieces here. So see, this fuzzy side keeps it together a little bit. Now, just like the tomato, rotate it, chop it again. Tiny little pieces, slices like this, and they'll come out. Like so. So you're gonna have little pieces. Make sure you don't have, at the edge, make sure you take out the parts that have the fuzzy, because that is not edible. But overall, you're gonna have all the diced tomatoes you need. Diced onion you need. Some pieces might fall off. Just go ahead and chop like this. Now, some people are pretty sensitive to raw onion, so I always like going around, piling it up, and make sure you get any other little pieces, any other pieces that are bigger, and chop it. And there you go. Next step, just like the tomato, use the back of the knife, throw it in. That is as painless as it can get with an onion. Okay. So each time, like I said, each time you throw in something, stir it up like this. Just wanted to get it actually helps with the denaturation process if you just get everything, all the juices mixed up together. All right, next, we got a cucumber. Cucumbers are pretty easy usually. Honestly, I've done this in different ways. I usually like cutting it in half, lengthwise like this. And then like assembly line. Sometimes it's fun to chop quickly, but here. Just little pieces. Just like the tomato, you want to make little diced cubes. And that's big enough for me. Another quick way, because some people don't like chunks of cucumber either, you can get a cheese grater or any type of grater and just do it that way too. It all mixes up, the flavor's in there, no one's the wiser. I actually have family members that don't like cucumber, but I do, and I do that so they don't see it. Go ahead and do that. Let's just do the rest of this one. Boom. Same thing. Pack a knife, throw it in. I also want to mention you can add a ton of other veggies. Tabbouleh is made all over the world and there's so many different variations of it. I love tomatoes, I love cucumber, but I've made this with any type of bell peppers. I've mixed up pine nuts or almonds in there. You can mince garlic if you love raw garlic, throw it in there. The rest is up to you. All right, next step. There's always good to have a type of leafy green in there. So the last step is parsley. In your packet, you have a little baggie of parsley. That's the most common one used. It's used all over. But I love mint, so I made sure I was gonna use mint on mine. You can also use cilantro. There's Italian parsley, that's used a lot too. As long as there's one, I think it A, adds a lot of color to it, and B, it's super healthy, so might as well throw it in there. Parsley is pretty easy to chop, and you just want to do it as small as possible. You can even cheat and use a food processor. Just throw it in, process it, boom. The chefs do it, so we could do it too. But this is COVID kitchen during a pandemic, and the lights are out. So if you have no power, you can do it this way too. Now, I didn't show this step, but the parsley that you're gonna get is gonna come with stems like this. I usually just took them off like that and threw it to the side. You just want the edge. You don't need, it's okay if there's a little stem in there, but you don't want nothing but stem in there. Get it in a little pile and just use the same chopping method you were doing with all the other veggies. Curve your fingers so you don't chop them off. And you're gonna do itty bitty pieces. The way I'm chopping, by the way, is front to back. And just keep going. Sometimes for good measure, I just keep doing it. Like one more time through. You just want it finely chopped like this. I'm done, throw it in. Honestly, the same way with the mint or any of the other greens that you're gonna pick. Make sure there's stems like this removed. Take them out of the edge, but all the leaves are good to go. And same thing, bunch them up, slice them like this, back to front to back like this. Actually, that's a little bit of a stem. I'm not gonna use it. This is also where you can get a little creative. There's some dishes, they put a ton of parsley, some just a little bit for the color. Use however much you want. After those, you just mix them up. So at this point, my rule, a good tabbouleh is just colorful. If you look like you have all the colors of the rainbow in there, you're doing a good job. Now, it's already puffing up, and that's a good thing. Mine's a little dry, so the olive oil that you have, go ahead and throw some in. You could be generous with it. The nice thing about olive oil is that unlike the citric, it won't make it too acidic. You can use any type of oil at home too. Vegetable oil works too. Olive oil just tastes the best. It's what you use for salad dressings, so it works for this. Now, that's actually all it is. When you're done with all the veggies that you want to do, have it mixed up in the bowl. If you have plastic wrap, put it over the bowl. If your bowl has a lid, use that too. But it's just best when it's covered. Otherwise, the rest of the fridge will smell like tabbouleh. And then throw this in the fridge. Okay, so after a couple hours in the fridge, you're gonna start seeing it really puff up. It actually starts even like a half an hour to an hour in the process. So you saw it from a little tiny baggie, 1 cup of the dry stuff that looked like rice. It really puffs up, especially with the veggies thrown in there. So it should be nice and soft. Stir it up again, just make sure that there's no other dry pieces in there. See, go in circles like this, the easiest way. All right, now the fun part, actually tasting it. So, remember we didn't put any salt and pepper in there, so it might feel a little bland, but what you really just want to check is that the grains are soft like cooked rice rather than uncooked rice. It's getting there. It's nice and soft. So, well, another thing to gauge or make sure of is if it's not too dry. This happens a lot. You think because you threw all the tomatoes and the veggies and a ton of citrus that it would be a little soggy, but it really absorbs a lot really quickly. That's what the olive oil is for. Oops. Don't put the cap in there. The olive oil is the best way because it's not too acidic, doesn't add too much other flavors for you to make sure that it's not too dry. By the way, other things you could use at the kitchen, if you're running out of olive oil and all that stuff, you can add any other citrus. You can add white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, anything that you put in a salad dressing, you could put in there too. It's perfectly fine. The idea is make sure it's not too dry. But we gave you plenty in the squeeze bottle. You can put a generous amount. I think that's a good amount. And just stir it up again. This is where you're gonna have to be a little artistic and creative. You just gotta decide every time you taste it if it's not too dry. And I didn't add any salt and pepper yet. So get that stuff. Again, believe it or not, it absorbs a lot. I mean, don't put too much salt, but put a good amount, mix it up, and taste it. Honestly, everyone likes it. It's either too salty or not salty. Everyone likes it differently. So since you're the cook, you get to decide. You'll try it again and decide if it's the right amount of salt for you. Perfect. Same with the pepper. If you don't like pepper or only a little pepper, that's okay. When you're the cook, you get to decide. Same thing, from the mouth, stir it up. And taste it. The one thing is you don't want to put too much. So always just taste it after a few batches. It's good. All right, there we are. The lights are out, but you managed to make some couscous. And that's how you make tabbouleh using denaturation. All right, I hope you guys really enjoyed your tabbouleh and your family as well.
And don't forget to come pick up your materials the second Saturday of every month from 11 to 1 at the back of the library.
And we'd like to thank the Friends of the Library for sponsoring this awesome event.
See ya!